Josh, watching on the New England Sports Network. Hello.
Hi.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Brett. Good to see you Ford running good at Pocono. Brett, do you think that Fords have a disadvantage this year? And Eli, what's going to happen to Davey Allison's Busch Grand National team? Thank you.
Okay, as far as Davey's Busch Series team, there was an article in one of the Birmingham newspapers this week that mentioned as one of the possibilities that Hutch Strickland might be purchasing the operation and keeping it basically intact. As to whether it would remain in Hueytown, that wasn't really made very clear in the article, but as of this moment, there's been nothing done. That was one of the quick stories, if you will, that was talked about in the Birmingham papers this week. As far as the Fords in '93, how do you think those cars stack up? That's been a regular question on this show.
Well, I think really it's pretty equal right now. I don't think that either manufacturer's enjoying an advantage. I think some of the Chevrolet teams might have stumbled onto some horsepower, but I don't think that was due to any rule changes or anything of that nature. I think they've just happened to hit onto a combination that's given them a little bit more horsepower. Aerodynamically, I think we're right there with the best cars in the business, and you know, I think the Quaker State car is getting better and better as the year goes on. I think last weekend's run showed that.
I was looking, as we all were, at the fuel mileage situation last week. Sometimes you don't know whether you can trust the crew chiefs. And I know I'm talking family when I talk about your crew chief, Donnie Richardson, but we've heard so many times crew chiefs say, no, we just can't go the distance. And of course, there they are. They run to the checkered flag and make many a victory lap thereafter. It wasn't really that way for you guys. You were going to have to stop, obviously, last week.
Absolutely, and that's why we stayed out with the next to last caution flag.
Right.
We couldn't make it from that point, so there was no sense of giving up track position. We were playing for another caution that everybody would make a pit stop, put on some tires, and take on fuel. Really, the race played out exactly how we needed it. We just couldn't execute there at the end of the race.
Brett Bodine is our guest. We're coming right back, but right now we take a look at the Winston Cup point standings as we leave you. Stay with us. We'll be right back to Talladega. At Bristol Raceway in Tennessee with Rusty Wallace and others behind you, in that instance Ernie Irvin. Short tracks, I'll tell you, they've been strong for you.
It has been a strong part of our season when we run into the short track stretch. We look forward to it. We feel like we've got good setups, and of course I really enjoy them. Bristol I've had a lot of success at, winning a couple races there with the Busch Grand National car. So whenever you go back to a track that you've run well at or had some success, you feel real good about going there.
We want to welcome the folks in New York joining us now, along with New Jersey and Connecticut on the Madison Square Garden Network. We welcome you to the show this evening. We're in Talladega, Alabama tonight at the International Motorsports Hall of Fame with Brett Bodine, our guest, driver of the Quaker State Ford. Now a call from Walter in the Tar Heel State. He's in Ramseur, North Carolina. Hello.
How y'all doing this evening?
Great, thank you.
I've got a question for Brett. I know that you've probably run in New Hampshire before during the Busch Series, but I was curious how you felt like the Winston Cup cars handled it in New Hampshire. And another question is, I know you're looking forward to Indy next year. I was curious if y'all had any plans for testing up there this year, and how do y'all think y'all do up in that area of the country?
Let's talk about New Hampshire first off. How'd the Cup cars run?
I thought it was a great race. I thought it was a great weekend. Unfortunately, we were a little rough on the surface due to the extreme heat in New England. We tore the corners up early part of the race, and we kind of had to change our lines, but I really think that added to the race. It put an outside lane at New Hampshire, which we normally hadn't seen there in the past with the Busch Grand National cars. I had never run there before, so I really didn't know what to expect on into the race, but because of the track tearing up a little bit, it kind of evened things out for everybody.
Hey, the fans up there, though, were super, and we've been up there, I guess, 5 times now to broadcast Busch Series races, but this was really a very, very special weekend. As far as Indianapolis, everybody's going up, virtually everybody, right after the race at Michigan in August.
I'll tell you, that's really the talk of the garage area, you know, getting ready to go to Indy. The guys that didn't get a chance to go last year are really looking forward to it. Of course, we're one of the teams that will be our first trip there, and I think that we're going to see big crowds for that test session, and I think we're going to see a little bit of racing going on.
I would think so.
You throw those guys out on the racetrack together, they're going to get awfully competitive.
And as a matter of fact, we're going to be taking this show to Indianapolis, doing a special broadcast from the Brickyard that Monday as part of that test session at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Now up to Worcester, Massachusetts. Jim on the New England Sports Network. Hello.
Hi, Eli.
Good evening.
I'd like to say thank you for a great show last week. It's nice to let the fans in on such a tragic moment.
Thank you.
And we all miss Davey here also.
Definitely.
Brett, we always enjoyed watching you run modifieds up here at Stafford Springs and Thompson. We hope the rest of your year you have much better luck. Do you think that Ford may be changing body styles at all anytime soon?
Well, I think next year we're looking at possibly an air dam change and a hood design change. But basically the Thunderbird's going to stay the same. No real large changes in the works right now. The car, we've got it worked out pretty well, and everybody's real happy with it. So I don't think Ford wants to mess with it at this time.
Let's go down to Tallahassee, Florida next. Justin watching on the Sunshine Network. Hello.
Hey, Eli.
Good evening.
How you doing, Brett?
Good.
Good, thanks.
I wanted to ask Brett a question, but I first want to warn you that I've been to Talladega 3 times, and Ernie Irvan has won every race I've ever been to there.
Are you coming this weekend?
Warn all y'all.
I hope he's not coming this weekend.
And I just wanted to ask you, we're going up there this weekend. And
There's your answer.
I was wondering if y'all were going to have any autograph sessions or anywhere outside the track or any place this weekend?
Well, this weekend is a big weekend for the race fans in particular. Downtown Anniston, the Race Fest coming up Friday. It's a real big event, and it's grown bigger and bigger each year, and a lot of that's due to Liz Alice and her efforts in making Race Fest real popular and in making sure that it was right for the race fans, and the drivers always look forward to that.
It's been very popular down in Daytona Beach. They've always had a race fest prior to the Pepsi 400, so again here in Anniston, Alabama this weekend. A visitor here at the Motorsports Hall of Fame with a question. Shannon joining us from the state of Nebraska. Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, Brett. Hi, Eli.
Hi there.
We watch your show in Nebraska, and we think it's really great. I'd like to ask you, Brett, how do the drivers get from track to track? Do you guys take buses, planes? What's the usual?
Well, you know, that's a real good question. That's why most of us live in Charlotte area, because we can drive to about 5 or 6 different racetracks. It's only a couple hours away. I drove down here tonight. It's about a 5.5-hour ride. A lot of guys have private aircraft. The longer trips, most of us use commercial. I don't own my own plane right now, but possibly in the future we might decide to get our own.
A lot of the fellows who own their own planes say they really can't make their... You know, it's funny. In years gone by, it was, you mean you own an airplane? Yeah. And now it's, you mean you don't own an airplane?
That's
I mean,
exactly.
Schedules are getting to be that full for everyone.
Well, absolutely. You know, a lot of us, not only the race schedules, but our personal appearance schedules. Yeah. You know, we might schedule 2 or 3 days in a row, and it's real important for us to get there on time. Commercial airlines scheduling just doesn't get it done for us.
Quanto, remind the folks about our next couple of shows on This Week in NASCAR. Next week, the Winston Cup Series is off. The Busch Series heads to Indianapolis. We'll be going to Nashville, Tennessee, taking our show for the first time to Music City, and our friends at the Nashville Network, TNN, kind enough to allow us to use one of their studios next Thursday evening, 10 o'clock Central, 11 o'clock Eastern Time at the TNN studios in Nashville. In 2 weeks, we'll pick up the Winston Cup Series again. Prior to the running of the Budweiser at the Glen, we'll be at the Corning Glass Center in Corning, New York, and we'd love to see you there, so come on by and say hello for This Week in NASCAR. Right now, as we break away, as promised, to look to the top 20 qualifiers for the Busch Series race on Saturday, the Fram Filters 500K. Take a look. We'll be right back. And of course, an outstanding drag racer in his own right, breaking the 300-mile-an-hour barrier prior to anyone else doing so. Easy working for a racer himself. I'm sure everybody's got their own quirks, but better to work for a racer than for a guy who's straight out of the boardroom?
Well, I think Kenny understands the problems and the scheduling and the pressure on a driver more so than, say, a car owner that's never been in the seat. And, of course, Kenny being successful, he really knows what it's like to come up the ladder. One of the downfalls is Kenny's so spread out, it's hard to get a time to talk with him and discuss the problems and possibly the direction that the race team needs to go in.
Interesting point. Let's go up to Newcastle, Pennsylvania. John, watching on the KBL Sports Network. Hello.
Hi, Eli. Hi, Brett.
Good evening.
I just got a question to ask you. How's everything going down there prior to everything that happened? Does everything seem to be going smooth? And Brett, hope to see you in victory lane one day here soon, because you've been running pretty good, and I'll probably catch you guys in MIS here in a few weeks.
Well, thank you very much.
As far as everybody's feelings and attitudes, it was a very difficult weekend last week in the aftermath of Davey Allison passing away. Of course, a lot of emotion here at Talladega this weekend as well. From my standpoint, I've got to think it was tougher on me last week. Not that it's a whole heck of a lot easier this time around, but last week the shock was still there, and everybody, as you and I did, along with everybody else, just kind of sat around in the garage and shot the breeze and told stories, and that part of the healing process took place last week.
Oh, absolutely. And in the garage area, you know, they left a stall open for the team, and that happened to be right across the garage from us, so we had a constant reminder each and every minute, and of course left a spot for the truck where it normally would have sat. And you know, it was awful tough last week. Very tough on everybody.
Sure. But certainly no one's going to forget Alan Kowicki. We're not going to forget Davey Allison, nor should we want to. But the healing process has to continue, and life does go on for all the competitors here. Let's head up to Baltimore, Maryland now.
Yeah.
Mike, hello. Good
Hello.
evening. Hey, Mike, didn't mean to scare you there.
No. You didn't scare me.
Well, you scared us.
Hey, listen, I'll tell you what.
What can we do for you?
Huh?
What can we do for you tonight?
Well, I'll tell you, last week, you really told the inside story about the airplane and, about the little tricks Davey told. And, that's a little inside that nobody ever gets to know about Davey. And I think that's a little thing that everybody should know, the little secrets about everybody once in a while. And, that's NASCAR side, and,
Well, I appreciate...
Davey was a great driver.
He really was. I'm glad you enjoyed
Brent,
the show.
How you doing?
Very good, thanks.
Well, listen, I'm a drag race fan myself. What's it like, working for a guy like Kenny Bernstein?
We've discussed the basic elements. Do you guys ever talk about the variances in the roundy round versus the straight line sport that he's involved in?
Oh, absolutely. Kenny's tried his hand at driving the Winston Cup car a couple times. They asked me if I wanted to run the top fuel car. I turned it down. I really don't want to jump in anything I'm not used to or know anything about. But I think the teams, they try to swap information and try to learn from each other. Like when the drag racers are in the Charlotte area and working out of the Winston Cup shop, they'll go to as many races as they can and just try to watch what's going on and pick up on it. And if we get a weekend off, I try to go to the drag races. So we all try to swap information.
You can always learn in this life, no doubt about that.
Absolutely.
Let's head out to the Pacific Northwest now for a call. Mike is with us from North Bend, Washington. Hello.
Yes, I was wondering, I've been watching you guys' commercials and everything, and I was wondering, did you guys ever find a painter for Bert?
No, we didn't. You don't happen to know of one that we could use this weekend. We need to get his name on there.
Not quite. How long would it take for you guys to make, what were you telling me, 2 30-second commercials is what you finally produced. How time-consuming is that for what we eventually see on the air?
Well, we started getting ready for production at 7 a.m. in the morning. We finished up about 10 p.m. that night.
Yeah.
And that had nothing to do with setting the stage area up and the scene up. That was just getting the lines down and working on all the camera angles.
Was Bert the consummate professional as he would come across?
Absolutely. He was a true gentleman. He had a lot of patience with Kenny and I. Of course, Kenny and I, we kind of messed up a lot of lines. You'd all get a big kick out of the outtakes, I'm sure.
I'd love to see those one day. We'll share them with the folks here on the air one day. We're going to come right back and continue with Brett Bodine, but as we leave you for a moment, let's take a look at the Rookie of the Year battle in Winston Cup Racing. It's sponsored by the folks at Max Race Cards. Take a look.
Corvette Vac by Eureka for home or auto. 10 tools included. Power for big jobs, tight spots, extra long cord. Corvette Vac by Eureka.
Tune up your car, Tom Smothers. Tune up your car today. Take it, Tom. With spark plugs from NGK.
For the car you drive, for the way you drive. Slick 50 high performance engine formula.
Key parts.
Do you have custom running boards? Do you carry gas shocks? Do you sell Holly carbs?
Do you have chrome wheels?
Neon kits? Lift kits?
Stereos?
Turbo mufflers?
Car mats?
Jeep tops?
Front filters? Pinstripes?
Slick 50?
Bug shield?
Yes. Check out DZ, the leader in truck and van accessories. When you're looking for quality, appearance, reliability, value, and style, look for DZ.
For high performance, off-road, or traditional replacement parts and accessories, visit your nearest Key Parts Auto stores or call 1-800-AUTO-PARTS.
What does it take to be a mountain man? Do you need a big horse? Do you need a deep tan? Do you have to have a saddle? Do you have to have the gear? Well, the simple truth is you just gotta have the beer.
Bush beer, an easy drinking Bush Light. Have you got what it takes to be a mountain man?
What does it take to live a mountain man's life? If smooth Bush beer is a drinking Bush Light.
We're back with you on This Week in NASCAR. The gentleman on the right of your screen, Brett Bodine, as I talked about earlier. What happens when push comes to shove and you guys have different ideas about what's going to work best in the race car? Do relatives get heated at one another, or have you guys been able to talk things out cool and calm over the years?
Pretty much just talk it out, figure out which is going to be our best plan. You know, that's really what makes our relationship great, is the fact that not only do we spend time at the racetrack together, it's at dinner after practice or qualifying, it's at the house. You know, we really have a lot of time to talk stuff out. Directions we want to go in, what we expect out of the car, what we're going to do next week. So really there's no surprises. It's not just an 8 or a 9-hour day at the racetrack. It's our whole lives working on for the same goals.
You know, we've talked so much about Davey Allison in the last couple of weeks. He tells the story about how you'd leave the racetrack after working all day, go back to the hotel, clean up, maybe make a quick appearance somewhere, then come back, and he'd visit with Larry McReynolds, his crew chief, in the hotel room with that little black book, going over what they want to do the next day. So you're right, the successful teams never stop. Let's head out to Anaheim, California now for our next call. A viewer, Mike, joining us on Prime Ticket. Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Eli, you have a nice show, and I'd like to take my going to Bobby Allison's family.
Certainly.
Okay, and I got a two-part question. Brett, in your future, when does your contract expire, and do you have plans with your brother to have a two-car team in the future?
Well, my contracts have only been year to year with Kenny. We've never signed anything longer than 1 year at a time. I think that's better in some ways, and in other ways it slows the team's progress down. I think if a driver had a long-term contract, all the people working on the team would know who's going to drive the car for a couple years and work in those goals. The way we are now, we have to renegotiate each year,
sure.
And that's where we are right now, negotiating for next year. Plans with Jeff, well, I think Jeff's got plans for himself right now with his new team, and he's really working hard to try to get that team secure a sponsor and get ready for next season. Down the road, you never know what could happen. Maybe we could see 3 of us running out of the same shop.
Let's head up to Essex, Vermont now for a question. Craig watching in New England. Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'd just like to say, first off, it's great to see the Winston Cup Series finally come up to New Hampshire, up in the North Seats here. And a couple quick questions I had is, with the engines that you guys are developing now and maxing out at close to 9,000 RPM, how much farther do you see development? And what is the latest word on Neil Bonnet racing this year?
Okay, Neil is here in Talladega and plans to run car number 31, sponsored by GM Goodwrench this weekend. It's a Richard Childress race car. It is not by any means a backup car either. As potent as they claim that machine is, it's not at all to be termed a backup car. So that's what's in store here this weekend.
As far as the engines are concerned, I'll tell you, I don't know what the limit is. Over 700 horsepower, like you said, 9,000 RPM. It's just amazing these things stay together. And I'll tell you what, they really run well, and we've seen very few engine failures as far as the race are concerned, the whole field. We see a lot of cars finishing the races, and that's a real good point for the fans.
You know what is strange, though, at Pocono back in June, not so much last week, but in June there were 12 engines that popped, and there you see it from the engine compartment, but there's other things, gearing and what have you, that can really cause an engine to finally lay down on you.
Absolutely. Pocono is probably one of the few tracks that it has 3 straightaways, which means the max RPM is 3 times per lap, where most tracks it's only twice per lap. And then you add in the fact that you shift on 2 of the straightaways, so that adds 2 more times on each straightaway that you're at max RPM. So we were really straining the motors up there, and I think so you saw guys back off the gear ratios a little bit, kind of calm the motor down a little bit, and a lot of cars finished this last trip.
Only 5 engine failures this past weekend as opposed to the 12 at Pocono back in June. We're going to break away for just a moment, so don't leave us now. But as we do break here, check out some of Brett Bodine's career statistics. We'll be right back. Bodine missing from that picture, but that's Jeff on the right with our special guest tonight, Brett Bodine. You know, when Jeff ran basically his own operation in the modifieds, I would think to some degree it'll parallel the way he's going to approach his Winston Cup team. He was very, very careful with the dollars. He didn't spend frivolously and was very successful. I think he's one of the few guys who will probably be able to step right in behind Alan Kulwicki and keep that operation going along the same lines.
Absolutely. You know, when Jeff took over the team, everybody in the garage area said, you know, there probably wasn't another driver that was more like Alan in the way he would run a team and approach racing than Jeff. And I think Jeff will fit in tremendously with all the guys that are right there now. They've got a good relationship now, but when Jeff gets in the seat and starts really running the team as a driver, car owner, I think you're going to see that the team really will function well together.
Talk to me, though, about the responsibilities of operating your own multi-million-dollar business. There are many guys in the garage area. One very prominent driver said to me not long ago, he said, I honestly don't want to run my own team. He said, when I get out of the race car, the race is over. I want to go to the airport, fly home, take the family, get on our little ski-doos or whatever it is, just putz around on the water, have not to worry about anything until the practice comes along. If you own your own team, you know, there's not much ski-doing time out there. I mean, it's all responsibility, and is that something you would embrace, that part of the business?
Absolutely. You know, I think that, you know, when Diane and I first talked about the idea of owning our own race team and then set out to do it, we understood what it was going to take. But the thing is, that's the way I came up through the ranks, just like Jeff did, operating and taking care of maybe not necessarily my own race team, but a team for someone that was a kind of like a silent car owner.
Did you do the travel and all of that stuff?
Took care of everything. Diane's driven the ramp truck before the races, you know, so it's just been a part of our lives all the way up to Winston Cup racing. It's kind of like a major league pitcher that got to the majors by throwing good fastballs in the minors, and he got up there and started throwing curveballs. He wasn't as successful. I feel I could be more successful as a car owner, driver, and I think it would make us more comfortable in Winston Cup racing.
Good approach. Let's get back to the phones and head out to Portland, Oregon. Dave, thank you for waiting. Hello.
Hi.
Good evening.
Brett, I got a question for you, partner. Hey, what size carburetors does CFM flow, and what kind of modifications can you make to them? Or are you like the Northwest Tour, and you just go out and buy 50, 60 carburetors and find one with the best flow and go fastest?
Well, we run a different carburetor on each and every different racetrack, different size CFM carburetors, whatever is going to work best at that racetrack. To pick one out and say that's what we run, that's really not how it is. We match it up to the racetrack, to the type engine we're running, to the type header combination. There's so many variables that change week to week with combinations at different racetracks. There's just not one that we run every week.
We're going to come right back, more with Brett Bodine in just a moment. But as we leave you now, a check of the broadcast schedule for this weekend's Die Hard 500 here at Talladega. Stay with us. We'll be right back. the line again here this weekend at 12:15 Central Time around the 2.66-mile racetrack. Welcome back to the International Motorsports Hall of Fame. We are situated just adjacent to that high-speed racetrack. Brett Bodine is our special guest. I'm Eli Gold. Let's get right back to the phones and go to Denver, Colorado, a viewer on Prime Network, Rocky Mountain region. Hello, Robbie. How are you?
Fine.
Good. Your question for Brett?
Yeah, I'd just like to let you know that you're really cool, Brett.
Thank you.
Yeah, my family and I are real fan of the Bodines.
Do you ever realize how many people that you guys really do impact? How many fans you have out there?
Well, really, it shows up when you go out and do these special races on off weekends. I've been to Denver before to a little short track out there. We run just a mock race, a put-up deal with 6 or 7 other Winston Cup guys. And that's really when you see what it's all about, how much Winston Cup racing is loved everywhere in the United States, and it really makes you proud to be involved in it.
Our phones are open to you right now, 1-800-292-5551, if you'd like to join us with a question for Brett Bodine. How many of these off-weekend events do you do? Somebody called in before about schedules. Not to get personal, but you have X number that you must do for your sponsor and others that you do by choice in addition. Is that how basically it works?
Yeah, I'm contracted, part of my contract to drive for Kenny Bernstein and Quaker State. I have to do 20 personal appearances a year for Quaker State. Anything over and above that, I can schedule myself any times I want to, and we do a lot of it on our own. A lot of times we go off and do some races, or we would just go off and do some endorsements or personal appearances, autograph sessions, car shows. You know, there's a lot of things that come up. A lot of it we have to turn down just because there isn't enough time for the family, and you know, you got to make sure you take that time.
Alan from Lufkin, Texas, joining us here in Talladega tonight. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Eli, Brett. It's nice to be here with you. 2 short questions for you, Brett. Is there any truth to the rumor that next year your sponsor will change to a certain beer company? And also, since there are rumors that Lonnie's giving Brett a hard, giving Bert a hard time, don't you think you ought to give the man a break?
Maybe we should put his name on the car this weekend. It might make him feel better, right? As far as the sponsorship's concerned, Quaker State is, this is the first year of a 3-year contract with Kenny, so Kenny's pretty much set as far as a sponsor for the next couple of years.
Let's head down to Bradenton, Florida now for a question. Good evening, Bob. How are you?
Just fine.
Great.
I was wondering, Brett, how did that Jericho transmission work last week? And can you use that at other tracks?
The Jericho transmission is just a wonder of the world, I'll tell you.
It's made road racers out of a lot of never thought they would be.
Absolutely, and the fact that we ran it at Pocono last week and have for a couple years, it makes Pocono a much more competitive and a much faster racetrack. We're seeing track records there every time we go. Of course, Kenny Schrader's got the
he
got the corner on the market on track records at Pocono. The Jericho is a transmission that you need no clutch to shift, either upshift or downshift. Just hold it wide open and pull the lever, and that's what makes it very, very practical at Pocono.
Any other tracks where, on paper, the shifting should work where currently you don't pursue that approach?
Indianapolis might be a place we use it. We thought possibly at Loudon, but as we got up there and ran, we didn't need to. You know, the first reports came out at Loudon with the Busch cars, and they're a lot less horsepower. They might benefit more from a Jericho than a Winston Cup car because of the horsepower difference.
Let's go to Richmond, Indiana now for a question. Hello, Paul. Good evening. Apparently, Paul couldn't stay with us, so we'll continue here chatting with Brett Bodine. Tomorrow, the car rolls off the truck. You've got qualifying. You've got those 3 sets of tires that have been much talked about before you can finally get more tires after the second round of qualifying on Saturday. What's the first approach tomorrow? Assuming the car is good off the truck, as it has been in so many spots this year, what do you try and tweak? Where do you look for that extra speed here tomorrow morning?
Well, there's a couple different areas. Tuning the motor is very critical at these racetracks. Getting as much horsepower out of the engine as possible under the conditions of the day. Weather's going to make a big difference on how you tune the car. Another area is chassis setup. Try to get the car as loose as possible, but not hung out to the point where the car's running sideways through the corner and slowing itself down. really a good, straight, smooth line, just a little bit loose is probably the fastest here at Talladega. And the other thing is making sure you've got the quickest set of tires on the car. As you spoke, 3 sets of tires. Having new ones on isn't the key. The fastest set is the trick.
We're going to come right back and continue with more of your questions for Brett. But before we leave you right here, a quick reminder about our next couple of shows on This Week in NASCAR. Don't forget, next Thursday, we'll take this show to Nashville, Tennessee. So many of you folks have asked, when are you going to bring the show to Nashville? We'll be there at the TNN studios next Thursday. We'd love to see you there. And certainly tune in right here on Prime Network. And in 2 weeks, we'll be up in the beautiful Finger Lakes region, just a stone's throw from Chemung, New York. The home of the Bodine family will be at the Corning Glass Center in Corning, New York, prior to the Budweiser at the Glen. So come on by and say hello. And as we leave you now, a quick look at some of the race information pertaining to Sunday's Die Hard 500. We're coming right back. Museum here in Talladega, Alabama, with our special guest, Brett Bodine. We're just sitting here reminiscing. It was just about 2 weeks from now, a year ago, that we did this show at the Bodine Brothers Garage, right there out behind the Chemung Speedrome. It's amazing. It's been a year now.
Absolutely. It was a lot of fun. It was a little chilly that night.
And the whole town, I remember, right in the middle of the show, and it's a live show, and the whole town came driving by on that one little road, just honking their horns and the whole bit.
Well, they were pretty proud to have your show in town.
It was a good time. We had a really good time. Donnie is with us here in the audience with a question for Brett. Good evening, sir.
Good afternoon, Eli. Good afternoon, Brett. It's a bad question for me to ask, but things that come across my mind, I'd like to ask this. In light of the great tragedy that's happened in Winston Cup racing this year, I would like to know if any rumors are stirred or any gossip is around that where they may allow some other driver to step in to a Winston Cup team. For instance, Bill Elliott's team member passed away one tragic day, and a member fell in for him and completed that season. What I'm asking is, has anybody thought about it, letting a driver be a team member such as the team members herself, being able to step in there and fulfill that job?
Well, basically, in the case of this weekend, Robbie Gordon will step in and become the team member for the Davey Allison Texaco team. The team owner points will continue going to Robert Yates, for it is Robert Yates Racing that will be out there. The driver points, obviously, will accrue to the driver of the weekend. I believe the question had to do with, could those points carry over possibly in one lump sum under the name of Davey Allison? It's an interesting thought, certainly, but as of right now, the policy is that driver points go to the gentleman who was actually in the race car. Now to Steve in Kentucky with a question from Campbellsville. Good evening, sir.
Yes, sir. I'd like to ask Mr. Bodine there, how do you feel about, like, the officials are continuously trying to slow the cars down? Wouldn't you like to see them run, you know, just as hard as they could go, like the restrictor plates and all that?
Well, certainly as a race car driver, you know, that's our job, to run as fast and as hard as we can. But the key factor here at Daytona and Talladega, the racetracks weren't built for the speeds that these cars are able to obtain. And virtually, we're putting the people in the grandstands at risk, and we can't do that. We don't want to have you people in the grandstands worried about your welfare. So we needed to slow the cars down, get them under control a little bit. It's great racing. I'll tell you, I've never heard a race fan lately complain about the races at Daytona and Talladega.
That's true. One thing folks tend to forget, remember, it was single file racing a lot of the time back in the days of 212 miles an hour. Here Sunday, we're not going to see a whole ton of single file racing. Let's go out to Tucson, Arizona now. Jack, good evening to you.
Good evening, Eli. I enjoy your show.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask Brett a question about building race cars. You know, we hear about these people, okay, you know, we've got to get a fleet of cars built for the next season. Do they build their own frames, or do they buy them off, say, Banjo Matthews or one of them other builders?
Most of the teams buy what we call a rolling chassis, a frame, a roll cage, and all the suspension points welded onto the car. And then I'd say probably 75% of the teams hang their own bodies, the sheet metal on the cars.
Right.
There are some outside people, Norman Degree and some others that do hang the body work for the teams, and then they take it back to their body shop and finish it up. Most of the chassis come from a Mike Laughlin or a Banjo or a Hutchinson Pagan. Some of the teams are dabbling in building their own complete cars. Richard Childress' team has built their own cars for several years now.
We're going to come right back and wind things up with Brett Bodine. This hour has flown right by, but don't leave us now. We return with final thoughts right after this. Forward. Again, a reminder, next Thursday night we'll be in Nashville, Tennessee at the TNN Studios, the Nashville Network. Hope you can make your plans to tune in right here on Prime Network, and in 2 weeks back up to the Corning Glass Center in Corning, New York. We want to thank all the folks here at the International Motorsports Hall of Fame. They've been so very kind to welcome us into their facility for the 4th year in a row, so we thank them. We thank you for your calls. Brett, take care. Good night. See you next week. So long, everyone.
This week in NASCAR.